Hey guys, it's me, Erika. I thought it was time that I would send a message out there to you all. This message is mostly for my coworkers. Hey guys. But I know that some friends and family and people in my community and who knows where else might be watching this too. So um, I think maybe I should give a little bit of background first. I'm a certified critical care nurse, and I worked in the same hospital network for, well, next year it'll be 20 years. Can you believe it? And I live and I work in a 10-mile radius. So it's not a rare thing for someone to come up to me wherever I am shopping or doing whatever and being like, hey, you're the nurse that took care of my mom, or hey, you're the nurse that took care of my cousin, or whatever. And they always make a point to tell me that I made a difference in the life of the person. And I can't always remember the patient that I had, like I can't see their face or I don't recognize their name or whatever, but it always means a lot to me whenever somebody takes the time to come up in my community and recognize me for the work that I do. I also have family members and patients who I connect with so much while I'm working on my shifts at the hospital that they've invited me to their homes afterwards or to the patients' funerals, if that was the case, or to their places of business. And I've even hopped on my bicycle and visited some former patients upon their invitation around the neighborhoods that I live in, just because we talk about where we live and stuff. I am so thankful to be able to care for the people who are in my community. I've also had the opportunity to work with a local university teaching critical care to the nursing students too. And I still maintain a good relationship with a lot of my nursing students. And as you can see, I'm a Daisy Award winner. And I have a bunch more where these came from, but if I wear too many of them, it weighs my badge down. I receive consistent positive feedback from all my patients and from every boss that I've had. And in almost 20 years, I have never been disciplined. In fact, I've asked to be on committees and to serve on projects and to start programs. I've worked at all the Indianapolis campuses, north, east, and south, which is where I am now. And I've worked in all kinds of capacities within those campuses. I help train students and new nurses. I'm a preceptor. And although I've never had an official leadership position within the network, totally on purpose, I like to think of myself as an informal leader in every area that I've worked. I'm not telling you guys any of this to pat myself on the back or for any other reason, but just to establish the fact that I have been well loved and well respected in my community and in my workplace. And I'm not unstable, I'm not insane, and I'm not any kind of troublemaker. And I love you guys, my coworkers, so much that I didn't just want to leave and you guys not know what happened to me or what's going on and what I'm up to. So on July 30th, right in the middle of my shift, I was placed on administrative leave for refusing to wear a mask. Now, most of you know that this is not a new thing, me not wearing a mask. I haven't worn a mask for over a year anywhere. I did for the first couple of weeks during this whole COVID-19 thing because no one really knew what was going on. Remember, it was like total chaos, and we were all just kind of like, what? Oh my God, ah. And so for the first couple of weeks, I did wear a mask, and I remember being like, by 1 o'clock every day, I was just really exhausted, and I felt terrible, and I had a headache, and I just felt dizzy, and so that was about the only time I wore a mask. From that point on, you've seen this sweet face every day. I think it's also important to note right here that I have never been sick this entire time. Not even so much as a sniffle, really. I've been in excellent health. And besides some other measures that I take with liposomal vitamin C and high potency vitamin D and zinc every day, I exercise, I drink plenty of water. But one of my major ways that I've stayed healthy is not wearing a mask. So I received a couple of comments here and there, some glances, some stares, but mostly you guys just let me go on my merry way because I don't know, I think maybe we have such a good relationship, all of us, and you trust that I am doing the best that I can to expertly and compassionately deliver the best care that I can to our patients. So, at first people would say something to me about like, aren't you afraid you're going to get sick? Why aren't you wearing a mask? But for the most part, for the last year, no one has really said anything to me about not wearing a mask. It's just what I do. Many of you have shared with me that you feel the exact same way as I do. It's usually behind closed doors, and that's okay. But a lot of you have said that you don't really agree with all these restrictions and mandates either. And some of you are really well researched, and some of you aren't, but you just still feel like there's just something weird, like something's wrong here. This doesn't feel right. I don't like life like this. And then there are some of you who are genuinely afraid. And you agree with all the restrictions and the mandates, and you see them as a way that we can keep everyone safe. I've seen your videos and your posts and your blogs with videos that say things like, wear your effing mask, make our jobs easier. Mask holes, you've called me and other people who choose not to wear masks. But across the board from all of you, whenever I have tried to mention any reason why I don't wear a mask or my feelings on other things, you've just said things like, well, Erika, I'm not really into politics, or Erika, I don't really watch the news. I'm not trying to keep up with any of that. But I'm trying to tell you that none of this is about politics, you guys. It's not about politics. And good, you shouldn't be watching the news. Not the mainstream media news, which is pretty much anything that's available these days, generally speaking. They're all just lying to you anyway and keeping the real stuff that you want to know about secret. Do you guys want to see some of the stuff that is going on in the world right now? Let me show you. You guys probably didn't even have any idea that people all over the world right now are protesting. They're taking to the streets because they're being told, you have to wear a mask, you have to get a vaccine, you have to be in lockdown, you have to have a passport. They're fighting it, you guys. Look at these people. The streets are filled. Do we see this on our television screens here in the United States? No, none of it. We don't see any of this. Why don't we see any of this? Why are we in the dark? Well, that's a whole other topic. I could explain tons of reasons why, but that's all for another video, perhaps. I'm here to tell you about why you're not seeing my sweet face at work right now. So, no matter where you are on this spectrum of knowing what's going on in the world or keeping up with the news on what's coming out of the CDC or the NIH or what Dr. Fauci has to say today, and whether or not you believe with anything that I'm getting ready to tell you, I just want you to know, coworkers, that I love all of you equally, and I'm fighting for you just the same. Let's start off with the whole reason that we've been told that we need to wear masks all the time. Since the beginning of last year in 2020, we were told that there's this new SARS-CoV-2 virus that causes COVID-19, and it's this super deadly virus that we need to take every precaution to protect ourselves against. We need to do things like wear masks, we need to socially distance, we need to stop gathering, stop traveling. You can't go see Nana because you might be a risk to her. And now you have to vaccinate yourself and maybe even lock down your communities because this is such a dangerous virus that we have to protect ourselves from. Well, I'm gonna start right out of the gate with something that might not be very easy for you all to hear. This is probably going to make you pretty uncomfortable, especially if you haven't heard anything about it so far. COVID-19, right? It's been our world for the last 18 months. The news talks about it incessantly. Every place we go, there's a sign on the door that says, you need to wear masks so that you don't give it or get it or whatever the message is that week. There are lines on the floor that tell you what direction to go in to keep you safe. There are spots on the floor that tell you how far to stand apart from everybody so that you can keep safe. And the reason that you didn't get your online package delivered to you in time is because COVID-19. And there's a ticker at the bottom of your screen on your weather app that tells you the conditions of your safety status for COVID-19. It's everywhere, right? State and federal mandates have told us where we can't go, how many people we can gather with, when we're allowed to go see our grandparents, and every other commercial on TV or on the radio is all about how you need to go get the vaccine to keep you safe, to keep the others around you safe, how you can do your part. But what if I told you that from the very beginning, we've never even been able to isolate this virus called SARS-CoV-2 or been able to obtain samples from infected patients? You'd think I was crazy, right? Because everything in our lives for the last 18 months, both at work and personally, has been all about COVID-19. It's the reason we swab everyone. It's the reason we isolate our patients. It's the reason they tell us to wear masks all the time. But here, let me show you what the NIH told us even last year in April. They've updated it a couple of times for corrections, but this information is still the same as of February 4th of 2021. COVID-19, quote, poses a challenge for public health laboratories as virus isolates are unavailable. Further, the PCR test that has been designed to test for SARS-CoV-2, quote, relies on close genetic relatedness with SARS coronavirus, making use of synthetic nucleic acid technology. What does that mean? A computer synthesized this thing? That's all we have so far is computer animations of the SARS-CoV-2 and the PCR test that they've designed to test for it. Since we didn't have a sample of it, they just picked from a big database of things. Holy cow, this has major implications, right? Because wait, we swab our patients every time they come in with symptoms like lowered oxygenation, shortness of breath, coughing, fever, right? And then we send these swabs to the lab, and then the lab sends us the results, and in big capital letters, it says, positive COVID-19. And then, for the duration of their stay, we isolate them in a room, we restrict them from having any visitors, and then every time we go into their rooms, there's a delay a little bit because we have to garb up in all this stuff to protect ourselves from this super dangerous virus. How could there not be evidence of this thing that we're calling COVID-19? No evidence of the virus that causes COVID-19? You guys, we've seen these patients. They're super sick. They're coming in. They do have shortness of breath. Their oxygen is low. They are coughing. They do have fever. Some of them, you wonder, holy cow, I don't know, is this guy gonna make it? They're really, really sick. How else could this be explained? Well, on July 21st of 2021, the CDC released a lab alert notice regarding the Class 1 recall on the COVID-19 PCR tests, saying that, quote, they were unable to detect or differentiate between SARS-CoV-2 and influenza viruses. It's true. Look, it's right here. Of note, I do feel the need to throw this in there for those of you who don't know it. The CDC is not a legislative body. They can't tell us what to do. They're more of a recommendation body that's privately funded. And you guys should look at the list. Check it out. Check out the list of donors. There's some pretty interesting people on that list who've been pretty vocal about things like overpopulation and saying that we should do something about that. Anyway, I digress. Oh, Erika, you're starting to sound like a conspiracy theorist, right? Well, so far, I've shown you proof that We don't have any evidence of having isolated the SARS-CoV-2 virus, which they say causes this thing called COVID-19. I've known since last year when I was following this stuff that they hadn't isolated it. So it's like, But now the whole world is getting ready to find out, you guys, because there was this guy in Alberta, Canada, just this last week, as I was preparing to make this video for you all, who was charged $1,200 in Canada for breaking one of their COVID rules. And as part of his defense, he decided to put the burden of proof onto the state to provide evidence that there was this thing called SARS-CoV-2. And guess what? They couldn't do it. Several governments have been asked to provide proof, and they can't provide it. Do you see why people are marching in the streets now? And then I've shown you evidence that even if there was this thing called SARS-CoV-2, that we don't even have a way to diagnostically test for it in a way that can differentiate between it and a flu or a bad cold. Oh my goodness, I can hear you all now. Oh, Erika, I bet the next thing you're going to tell us is that for the virus that doesn't exist and for the test that can't detect it, even if it did exist, that the masks aren't effective to screen it, right? You guessed it. They've told us that the SARS-CoV-2 virus is what's causing this whole thing that has shut down our economies, has forced people to die alone, and causes us to not be able to freely go where we want, or to go see our family, or to gather in any numbers, or to breathe freely. And it doesn't even exist. Guess what else they told us? They told us the size of this virus that they haven't been able to isolate. They tell us it's about 60 to 140 nanometers. Look at this list here of all of these viruses. So it's somewhere in between Zika and HIV-ish, both patented, by the way, which means it's man-made. Another video. That's super tiny, you guys. The pore size in the procedural masks that they want us to wear all the time is about 200 to 1,000 times bigger than the size of that virus. It's like throwing a handful of sand at a chain link fence and hoping that nothing goes through. Absurd, right? It even says right on the box, you guys, that this product does not protect against COVID-19 or other viruses or contaminants. But you know what can be trapped by a mask? Bacteria. Viruses can flow in and out of a mask easily, but bacteria stays trapped. It's about 50 times bigger. And they can get trapped in your mask and cause the wearer to continually be exposed to it. Remember about 100 years ago when they tried this whole pandemic thing on us before with the Spanish influenza? It was from 1918 to 1920. There's almost universal agreement among experts that the reason for most of the deaths associated with that wasn't even related to the influenza virus. It was because of the bacterial pneumonia that developed secondary from chronic mask wearing. What are we seeing with a lot of our COVID patients these days? COVID pneumonia? And let's not forget about the most obvious thing to me in all of this thing. Where have all our flu patients gone? Do you guys even remember what flu season looked like? I'll give you a reminder of what flu season looks like. We see it every year, and it looked a lot like this last year, with a lot less fear and panic and PPE and premature ventilations. We usually have a ton of patients that come in during flu season. You remember this, guys? Where were they this year? We had one flu patient on our floor this year. And guess what? She also tested positive for, you guessed it, COVID-19. I've asked this 100 times with you guys. Why don't we have any flu patients? And I've heard a couple of you say the same thing. I don't know where you got it, but you said, it's because we're wearing masks, Erika. So COVID cases were on the rise, but we eliminated the flu? That makes no sense, you guys. Especially in light of the fact that, remember what I told you earlier? Masks don't protect against viruses. What else could the reason be that we've seen all of these super sick patients? Perhaps it's because we've been calling the flu by a different name? Don't think I'm making this stuff up, you guys. The CDC already let it slip up that they can't differentiate with the PCR tests between this made-up virus that doesn't exist and the flu. Are you starting to see why I just can't buy into this whole thing and why I'm not willing to wear a mask because of all of it? What I've mentioned so far stands on its own merit alone, but I have a couple of more reasons. One of the favorite articles that I came across, because I really connected with it, was written by a guy that used to work for Stanford, but Stanford doesn't claim him anymore, so that was part of why they retracted it. And they also retracted it because he had a couple citation errors, and then they also said that they couldn't verify the stuff that's in this table. But look at the list of this, you guys. Look at the physical and psychological effects from wearing masks and tell me that you can't relate. I hear you guys talking all the time about how the masks are giving you headaches and making you feel really tired. And I know that you're struggling with anxiety and depression because of all of this. And I think the masks are making it worse. Now imagine that you believe as strongly as I do that we're being asked to wear these masks all the time for no good reason. Would you be willing to continue to put up with all the discomforts? I'm not. Hang with me, guys. I still have 2 more reasons for not consenting to wearing masks. I don't have any research or any videos or any articles to justify what I'm getting ready to say. This is just coming from my heart. There's an art to nursing, you guys. We can either be the kind of nurses who go into our patients' rooms and perform our tasks like robots and then leave, or we can be the kind of nurses that really connect at a human level with our patients. We can aid in their holistic healing. And I believe that a big part of that is being able to see our sweet faces. Our faces are what communicate compassion and empathy and kindness and understanding. Our little old hard of hearing patients, they need to be able to read our lips. Our psychotic patients, which we've been seeing a lot more of lately, they need to know that they can trust us and we can build a rapport with them better if they can see our faces. Our non-English speaking patients, they look to us to be able to tell what we're saying. They need to see our faces. I don't think that masks should come between us and another human. And my final reason for not wanting to wear a mask, and maybe the most important, I don't like it. I don't like it, you guys. I'm smothering in it. And like when I'm talking and I'm trying to educate patients, and then every other sentence I'm having to be like, it's like the worst feeling ever. It's stifling and it makes my ears hurt and it causes anxiety and frustration. And every time I come out of a place, I'm like, I don't like it. I also don't like that they just banned us from being able to wear our super colorful, awesome network t-shirts because I got flowers to match all of them and was really excited about it. But I digress. As terrible of a situation that was for Community Health Network, I have to step back and be like, does it violate my bodily autonomy? No. But wearing a mask does. And if me not wanting to wear a mask because it makes me terribly uncomfortable and I don't want to do it was the only reason that I had, that would be enough of a reason. Here's the bottom line, you guys. Whether or not you agree with me, whether or not you believe what I'm saying, Community Health Network, or whoever your employer is, does not have the right to mandate you to wear a mask. Let me explain why. Mask use for viral transmission prevention is authorized for emergency use only. Emergency use authorization by the FDA means that the products are investigational and experimental. and use of such requires that a person being administered the unapproved product be advised of the right to refuse administration of it. I don't know about you guys, but I wasn't told that I could refuse. I was told I had to wear it because of hospital policy, which isn't really one of our policies. It's not in our policy handbook. Further, they can't make us wear these masks without our informed consent. I have not given my consent. In fact, I have said I do not consent. By our employer mandating us to wear masks, they are promoting the idea that a mask can prevent or treat a disease, which is an illegal practice. Illegally mandating this investigational intervention of mask wearing generates liability for our employer. And it infringes on our constitutional rights and our bodily autonomy. Forcing us to wear masks without our consent is illegal and immoral. Now, we're each gonna do what we want. We're each gonna do what we want. You've heard me say that 100 times, you guys. We gonna do what you want. You're gonna do what you want. But we're gonna do what we want. And maybe you wanna sit around in an ineffective mask to protect you against something that doesn't exist. But maybe some of you are listening to me and maybe this message resonates with you. And if that's you, be brave. Stand on the law. Do what I did and tell your employer that you do not consent. We all need to urge our employer to comply with state and federal law and to provide everyone within the network notice that they have the right to wear or refuse the mask. Any other course of action is contrary to the law. Community Health Network put me on administrative leave until August 29th of 2021 so that they can try to help resolve my employment situation. They're going to try to make an example out of me. Don't be afraid, you guys. Just because I'm not there, don't let it be what silences you. I will not be silenced. I've prepared all this information in an affidavit to provide to the leaders of our network and with the leaders of our state. And I'm seeking audience with these guys so that they can justify to my face, my sweet unmasked face, why they continue to push these restrictions and mandates in light of all of the information. The ball is in their court to do the right thing. And I'm pleading with you all too, to do the right thing, because you also have a responsibility in avoiding mandating masks for our patients even. I know you're all going along with these mandates and restrictions. Some of you are hemming and hawing the whole way and like, we just gotta do what we gotta do. I know that you're doing it because you're thinking that it's helping to get things back to normal. But that's not what's happening, you guys. When you comply with all of these ridiculous mandates and restrictions, it's just extending and making it worse. Next, what? What are they going to do next? The next variant that they can't prove, since we can't even prove the one that we had to begin with. And then it's a Delta variant. Then it's the Epsilon variant. And then what? And then more lockdowns. And then, the vaccine you took didn't work. You have to still wear a mask. And then what? And then what? They will do this and do this and do this until you have been robbed of all of your civil liberties. And then you will have wished that you would have listened to me when I'm trying to tell you what's going on. So until this is all resolved with my employment situation, I'll be using my time away from you all purposefully, fighting for all the God-given rights that we have as humans. And don't worry, you'll all be seeing me soon because we still have a lot more to talk about. They asked me to leave the hospital because of my opinions on wearing a mask. No one even heard my opinions about all the rest of the stuff. So if the SARS-CoV-2 virus hasn't been isolated, which they're using to push this whole COVID-19 narrative, and if the PCR swabs that we use to test for this non-existent virus don't work, Then forget about my little issue with the masks. What was in that shot that they gave you? What was that for? We'll talk to you guys soon.